Today this presentation's in two parts. The first part is back to basics, which is basically everything that we do. I kept getting asked about what we do, and there's things that you take for granted because you do it every day. I've had budgies 45 years, so there's lots of things you take for granted. So the first part of this presentation is based on the stuff that we do. Then we'll have a short break, and the second part is called Back to the Future, because as some of you know, I came out of the fancy for a short time, then came back in again, and even in that time the budgies were changing. So I'm now doing things a little different to what I did the first time, and that'll be explained in the next part of the DVD, the video. Okay, well, back to basics. First thing, you need a cabin or a bird room. You need somewhere to put them. And what I would say to you is that if you look at a lot of people's bird rooms, they develop. You pinch a bit of space in the garden that your missus will let you have, or the husband, and then you manage to pinch a bit more, so you extend a bit more, and you extend a bit more, and they never end up how you want them to be. So when you get an opportunity like this for me to start again, it was a case of, right, the things that I've learnt over the years to do things differently. So the first thing was to try and get as big a bird room as I could manage. There was a tennis court where we lived, so it was ideal to put it on, but I can say I've already ordered another 20 by 16 to put behind it. So even though you think you've got enough room, you never do. It's a log cabin. I had a choice to make it out of brick or have a wooden cabin. Well, the log cabin for me is sort of like in between. Yes, it's wood, but it's really thick, about 3 inches thick. And I'm delighted with it. An advantage of this particular cabin is I can open both doors. So when the weather's really warm, to get a good airflow, because there's a window at the back, I can actually open both doors. Obviously, budgies being budgies, they get out, so I've immediately put a safety door on the front, and of course an alarm. It's a shame, but today, particularly when you have lots of visitors in your bird room, we never really know. So we should, obviously, it's worth making the effort to make sure that your birds are kept secure. The next thing was what type of flooring, etc., and cupboards. Now, I find that in other bird rooms, you put more cupboards than you really need. And what happens is they just end up gathering dust. So outside the cabin here, which you don't see, I've actually got the lift-up plastic seats. All my seed, all my drinkers, all my dishes, everything goes in that outside the bird room. So I've left to this small area, kitchen unit, there's a dishwasher in there now. The floor, as you can see, it curls up the wall. It's a really hard vinyl, the type that they have in hospitals. So that I can scrape it, wash it, wherever, and by curling it up the wall, it's easy to sluice down without any moisture getting into the wood. I've got a dishwasher in there, which keeps me in the good books with wife by not taking all the dishes up and messing and cluttering the kitchen up. And it's handy, all the heavy dishes I can put in there, and the plastic ones that may flap about in there, I'll still take up the house. The alarm is kept within that cabinet there. The windows, I had double glazed toughened glass for the windows, just as another deterrent. Flights. The archetypal flight that most of you probably have are those that are built in. And when I first started having bird rooms, that's what I did. I built flights into the bird rooms. But the most laborious job you're going to come across is cleaning them flights. It's hard work, and they're hard to keep clean. So I quickly developed the idea that, hang on a minute, I think the mobile flights, for the type of bird we now breed, and I'll go into that in the second part of the presentation, that we don't need the big inside flights anymore, I don't think. These are Austringer flights, and they're ideal because I can move them around the bird room. If you can see the extension on the legs, they will actually drop to the floor, so you can make them fit the height of the bird room that you're in. They're ideal. And so I've got 3 of those. Built-in feature is there are 2 plugs like that in the floor, one at each end, so that when they're extended for cleaning out, you put a box underneath, take the plug out, scoop it all down, put the plug back, and move on to the next one. Makes cleaning easy. The thing with budgies, I don't want to pack in the birds because it's too much hard work. When the time comes for me to give up the hobby, I want it to be because I'm ready for coming out the hobby. I've unfortunately seen people as we get older with dust and various different things, people leave the hobby before they really want to. because it's hard work. So everything about this new bird room is designed not just for cleanliness needs for the birds, but also for me, to make it easier for me to keep on top of them clean. And these are ideal for that. There's a shot of the bird room where you can see I have wire cages. So all my wire cages go around the outside. Right now, in my bird room, it's virtually empty. All you see is those flights, because all the cages are off, pressure hose down, and in the garage. It's less things to attract mites, it's less things to gather dust, less surfaces for bacteria, etc., etc. They're not everybody's cup of tea, I accept that, but for me, it's practicality. The wire cage is great for my health, and I also believe the health of the birds. So when you come in my bird room now, which is all covered in the toe and groove plastic, I just wipe the walls down and I've got those 3 flights in there. And that's with the 1 flight at the end, the 2 flights that are reduced in the middle. I have 1 bank of plastic cages because getting birds ready for show, you can't get them ready in wire cages. They bash their wings and damage their wings. So it's much better to have a set of cages. So I've got the plastic cages for that. Extraction. People buy fans when they can feel the dust. It's too late. It's too late. If the bird dust doesn't bother you, you won't be thinking about fans. But actually, now is the time to think about fans. Because once the dust has got a grip of you, there's no going back. It doesn't get better. And the dust from a budgie, it's live protein. So it isn't like household dust, or wood dust, or cement dust. It's a live protein. Now, when that gets into your system, if your system reacts against it, and you start getting sensitive to it, and your chest tight's tight, you can wear all the masks in the world, you can get a fan, it's too late. So what I would say is they're not expensive. One of those is £30, I think. And I've got 1 at the top, bringing air in, 1 at the bottom at the back, taking air out. They come on for 45 minutes. And in 45 minutes, having spoke to the manufacturers, that completely changes the air in the bird room in a 30 by 18. We tend to think of extraction for pulling dust out. Well, if it changes the air, by definition, it's going to take a lot of the dust out. You still get dust on surfaces, but you can wipe that. It's the particles in the air that won't do us any good. And if you think about it, it can't be doing the birds any good, because in the wild, they would fly, and that dust which is used to lubricate the feathers would disappear. We keep them in confined spaces. So not only are we breathing it, we're forcing the birds to breathe it as well. You get one bird that's carrying something, and it's flapping its wings, that dust is going into the air, and pretty sure it's going to spread it to the other birds as well. So anything you can do to take that dust out of the air, it's not just for you, but it's for you and for the birds. And these are inexpensive. They're low watt, they don't take a lot of electricity to run. The reason I have them on a timer for 45 minutes is during the breeding season, I don't want the outside temperature to be the same as the inside temperature. So by having it on 45-minute cycles, it completely changes the air, but also then gives the temperature time to build up again, and I try and keep it at around 50. So they're an important piece of kit when you're thinking of fitting your bird room out. These are the wire cages, 16 by 16 by 23, 8 by 8 by 10. These are the Tresper type box that Malkington makes. When they first came out, I saw them at Joe Mann's, and they were Tresper on the outside and wooden boxes on the inside. Then as things progressed, he changed them, and he made the inside box out of Tresper with a hardwood concave, and you've probably seen them in some of the aviaries. Some of you may have upgraded to it. Well, to me, it pushed it too far. It was too artificial. If I was a hen sat incubating boxes in the eggs, and I was surrounded by plastic, it'd do my skull in. You know, you just nothing to occupy the birds. You can put a millet spray in when they've got chicks, but when they're sitting on the eggs, and I think it's a cause of a lot of problems we have with hatchability, etc. So I've always stuck with the wooden ones. Yes, they take more cleaning, and you've got to be careful with mite, but as long as you clean, they're fine. And it's a better environment for a hen to lay and rear chicks. So I've got the Tresper on the outside, which is all sealed, great for durability. But on the inside, I've got the wood, which I think is more conducive with what a hen would find in the wild, which is the right environment for laying and hatching a clutch of eggs. The hooks, you can actually get the frames for the wire cages, but the frames gather dust. So I don't use the frames. I've got those long reach hooks. And when I was setting the bird room, I had to mark exactly where the trusses were so I could pick them up again with the screws. Because when you come in the bird room, all you'll see is all these screws on the wall that I've screwed in for hanging the cages on. But they go in quite a way, so they'll take the weight of the cage. I also, you can't see it on there, but there's two wing nuts. I bolt my boxes to the cages. Because I'll have a lot of visitors, and it might even be in the breeding season. You've only got to knock one of them boxes when there's eggs or chicks in, and down they go. So it's worth the extra time. I actually bolt the box onto the wire cage. Although you can't see close up, I don't have cuttlefish. I haven't given cuttlefish for 20 years. Cuttlefish goes back to the time of breeding in coconut husks and using cytocon and abidex. We've moved on. The bird doesn't absorb hardly any calcium from a cuttlefish bone. So I give liquid calcium periodically in the water. People say, yeah, but they like chewing the cuttlefish, and they do, but it's expensive. So I get an iodine block. There's calcium, there's minerals, there's iodines in there. They're not as expensive as cuttlefish, so I have an iodine block in every cage. I also don't give grit, and that may be controversial because, you know, everybody will tell you that grit is an essential part of a bird's diet. And by the way, don't all dash home and change everything you do just because I've stood here and said so. This is what I do, and there may be bits that you can pick out of it. The question is, do budgerigars need grit? Well, that has to be no. Because for the last 20, 30 years, I've never had a piece of grit in the bird room. My birds would be dead, wouldn't they? I wouldn't be breeding birds. I wouldn't have good, healthy birds. There'd be something wrong. That doesn't mean that they don't get anything out of the grit if you give grit. Because they may well get calcium or minerals. They may take that out of the grit. I give it another way. Do they need the grit to break the food up? No. Why? Because a budgerigar shells the food. It takes the shell off. Something like an ostrich eats it whole, and it would need the stones and the grit to break and grind it up. A budgerigar takes the shell off, so the inside digests. The bird's digestive system will digest it. So grit's fine, but it's not used to digest the seed. But they may be getting other things, trace elements, minerals, whatever. I just chose to take, I didn't want stones in the crop of a bird if I didn't need it. So I haven't given it for, must be 30 years now. Birds will go to an aviary where there is grit and they'll eat it. Birds will come from another aviary where they've been reared on grit and they manage perfectly fine. So it's a matter for you whether or not you use grit. Chick hides. We know how aggressive parents can be when a chick comes out the box. I've heard people really, I mean, it winds you up and it's an awful thing to happen, but I don't actually get too critical on the bird because it's an unnatural environment. In the wild, if a chick comes out of the nest, when it fledges, it'll go to a nearby tree. The hen will go down, carry on breeding, there's no chick to pester it, there's not going to be any problem. We force them in an area like that. Some are fine, some don't mind. Others, however, will attack the chick. And then we get annoyed because it's had its head ripped off or the beak's been ripped off or whatever. So to try and prevent that, I put a chick hide in. Now, this is a new design for me. Ian Ainley's lad Scott made them for me because a chick hide, a little dark hole, there could be anything going under there and you've got to really check and make sure that you can see what's going on with the birds. With these clear perspex, I can have a glance round when I go in case something needs my immediate attention. And when I come out of a night, the last thing I do, I can go around in case there's been a change and there's a chick under there that's either too young or been attacked. Would they use it, the clear perspex? Is it the darkness of a chick hide that attracts them? Well, I found that mine's a wire cage, so I have a wooden board from back to front. And the chick hide sits in the middle and I put my seed on top. And I'm telling you, the chicks use it. The chicks use it. They go in there, and I can see them. And yet the parents go in, they don't mind them, they'll feed them through the holes. So that was a change for me. The solid, the heavy duty, aluminium and quite thick perspex, and that's been a success. So it's just something that works for me. It's something I tried last year. Fogging machine. That's probably one of the most important pieces of kit I bought, is the fogging machine. Because I'll specifically talk about this stuff here, avian insect liquidator. Red mite will really devastate your stud if you get it in your stud. It spreads disease, it weakens the chicks by, I wouldn't like to be fed on every night like the birds are. And if you've got it bad, it's really hard to get rid of. What do? So you wash everywhere down, or you'll get a garden sprayer and you'll put insect stuff and you'll spray it. But it'll only come out as far as the pressure will force it out. You put the fogging machine on, and the way I work mine is, might live off the bird. They'll find all the nooks and crevices that you can find, and then of a night they come out and feast on the birds. So my lights go out 10 o'clock. At 9:45, on the days that I fog, because I'll fog once a fortnight and then once a month, I'll have the fogging machine set up at the end of the bird room on an extension, and I'll plug a timer in. So that the fogging machine will come on at 9:45. It comes on for 10 minutes. Well, 10 minutes fogging in a 30 by 18, and it fills the room. Now, because it's motorised and it drives it, and it's continually driving it, it gets to every nook and cranny everywhere. In fact, I open my cupboard doors, I open the drawers when I'm setting it up, so that when I'm out, it's getting everywhere. The AIL is safe, it's safe for the birds, it's safe for food. So I come out, 10 minutes of fogging, it stops at 5 to 10. At 5 to 10, any birds that are out the box are covered in it, everywhere's covered in it. The lights go out 5 minutes later, out come the mite for a feast, straight into it. It's not a danger of me, have I missed anywhere, have I squirted somewhere, did I do it? I fog everywhere. And if you do it on a regular basis, you can keep on top of the mite. And it's so important. We spend a lot on food and birds and everything else, but mite will devastate your stud if you get it in your birds. So it's great. It's also good. The top one is Solosan. People always talk at something today, you can use F10, you can use Virkon S, you can use whatever. The Solosan, I like, it's a safe antivirus, antibacterial disinfectant. So periodically, I'll do just the same, fog it, and I'll put that in. So everywhere's getting a coating of this antiviral and antibacterial disinfectant. Again, it's safe. So the fogging machine, although it was reasonably expensive to buy at first, it's a great piece of kit because it gets everywhere. Now that the liquid was Solosan, this is Stalosan. And I remember Buckton's used to do this years and years ago. You could get it from Buckton's. And then when we lost Buckton's as an agent, it stopped. But I found it on the inside. And this is the powdered form of the antibacterial, antivirucidal liquid. So all my trays, I just get a flour sieve, put that on, put it in. Anything that drops through the tray and hits that, it's nullified straight away. Takes any smell away, stops any spread. The chicks can't get at it anyway because I've got wire cages. And on the wire cages, I'll just say that I'm going to go on to soft food and that, but if you give egg food and you use a conventional cage, you have to be clean. Because when chicks come out the box and they go down, they pick. And if you put egg food in on a Monday, and come Friday, you haven't cleaned them out, and you put in more egg food in, and the weather's a warm day, it's going to get covered in that lovely green fungus, and you're going to get your birds catching salmonella. So if you give egg food, then please be more critical on how often you take it out and clean your cages. Another advantage to wire cage, see, everything I give the birds is fresh, because it all falls through. I've already said I don't give cuttlefish. I give this particular one at the moment, which is produced by Martin Halen. That is AV Smart. There's two different calciums there. That one I use once a month. I'll put it in the water for a couple of days. This is a stronger calcium. And the reason I keep that is, quite often, well not quite often, but sometimes you'll see a hen comes off the eggs and you'll think she's hurt her egg. She'll be lame. Or they go off the legs and you think they've injured themselves. And the chances are, if a hen hasn't got enough calcium, she will draw it from her bones to produce the eggs. And that's where you get the weakness and you go down. I'll just get a crop needle and put calcium straight into the crop, and a couple of times I've done it and it'll bring the hen round. She needs that shot of calcium. So sometimes you see a hen off and you think she's off her legs or she's gone down, and it's really a calcium deficiency. She's drawn it from the bones perhaps in a breeding season and they go down. So it's always handy to have some liquid calcium that you can put into the bird if you need to. Immunity Gold, I always go to the lectures and listen to whoever's talking, because you might pick up one little piece of information. I went to listen to Marcel Burkel. He was the vet and he used to look after Loro Park. The guy obviously knows his stuff. He was doing a lecture at the BS and everybody was bombarding him with, well, what about megabacteria? What about French molt? What do you do? And he stopped everybody. He said, well, what do you do for the immune system? And people was, well, I give vitamins. He said, no, what do you do for the immune system? And it's something we don't think about. And he kept mentioning echinacea and various other natural herbs and that were designed to improve the immune system. So when I come out, good old Google, went on Google, put in immunity, echinacea, birds, and that came up. You can get Immunity Gold or Immunity Plus. I use Immunity Plus now. The design, this was made for pigeons. You can get it for all birds now. Everything in it is natural product, including cider vinegar, honey, but echinacea. And it's one of those products that after a month or two of use, I notice a difference in the birds. So in the breeding season, I give that. And I've had some people use it and they say, well, I don't really notice it. And what they do is they'll give it a day, then they won't, and then they do and they don't. Well, if a budgie knows and doesn't like the taste of that, but they know the following day they're going to get something else, they won't drink that day. They'll wait till the following day, then you put fresh water in. And then, so they don't really take it. If you put them on it on a permanent basis, day after day, they take it and they get used to it. And I've seen the benefits. So in a breeding season, that goes in the water for 3 weeks out of 4 every day. And then on the 4th week, I take it out and I might put the liquid calcium in. Or I might put a probiotic in. Or I might just leave it clear. But the important thing is to give it every day. And then the bird gets used to it. It's all natural product, so it's not going to hurt the bird, as long as you get the dosages right. And there's a beneficial, I think, in the birds. The 2 biggest killers in the fancy, and this part always surprises me. Dr. Baker used to release information every year, and he used to print it in the budget every year. Biggest killer every year for as long as I can remember, megabacteria. Next biggest killer, trichomoniasis. You can dose for both. And I won't embarrass anybody, but I bet there's lots of people who don't dose for either of it. The killers. Some of you will know Joe Stainforth. Yeah. Joe rang me this year. Have you got any hens, Harry? I'm sorry, mate. I've had a disaster. Well, what's your disaster? I've lost 119 hens. Birds, most of them hens. Megabacteria. Wiped him out virtually. Mike Ball, a lot of you know Mike Ball. He lost 10 outstanding birds through trichomoniasis. Both guys are guessed kicking themselves because you can dose for it. You can dose for it. The mistake we make is you walk in the bird room, there's lots of noise, everything's bouncing, you think, I don't need anything. But if it hits you, because stress is the biggest thing that'll kick off megabacteria. I honestly believe every single stud in the UK has got megabacteria. There's no way you can avoid it if you don't dose for it particularly. A vet came to see me, a budgie breeder, and he always used to say, you dose for symptoms, not just because it might be there, you dose for symptoms. And when he came to see me, I had all my drinkers blacked out, because when you give him Megabac, you've got to black the light out or it degrades very quickly. And I could see all my drink, and I didn't realise that he'd stepped in the aviary. I thought, oh God, I'm going to cop it here. He's going to give me a right rollicking for dosing when I don't need it. And after 10 minutes, I said, right, I can't stand it anymore. You better tell me, you know what I'm doing. He said, I've clinically cleaned my stud 3 times of megabacteria, and it comes back. So he dosed. Because if you go to shows, or you have visitors, or you bring birds in, you will bring in megabacteria. I brought in a very expensive bird last year from abroad, megabacteria. Now, it's a silent killer. Now, the only stuff you can really dose for megabacteria is that Ronovet S, Megaback S, and it's made in Australia. I've heard all sorts of other things about, well, there's this powder that you can put in baking product and it stops antibacterial. I'm not baking cakes. I'm feeding budgies. I'll trust an Australian vet above somebody who's suggesting using baking powder because it's about 10p for 3 gallon. You know, I mean, you know, sometimes you have to put the effort and pay in to protect your birds. Now, what I do with the Megaback, I dose for 3 years, then I take a year off. And then dose for 3 years and take it, just so in case they might possibly build up an immunity. So I dose every year with Megabacteria. Ronovet S, 4 times a year. Not last year, the year before, I bred 150 birds straight through, no problem. Then the next 50, I lost 40. Going purple, skinny, drying up. Spoke to the guys at Veta Farm. Straight away, said, oh, it's trichomoniasis. I said, well, it can't be right. I dosed the birds with Ronovet. He said, well, I can't understand that. He said, when did you do it? I said, about 6 months ago. He said, what? He said, how often did you do it? I said, once a year, the same as the Megaback. He said, no, not with Ronovet. You have to do it 4 times a year because it builds up again. You have to do it 4 times a year. Ronovet, it's not expensive. And the birds, it's not harsh on the birds. And you can't really, it's difficult to overdose because he said to me, triple the dose. I said, I've got pink babies in the box. He said, well, that's the idea. They're dying. Triple the dose. Well, Ronovet S is pink. There's another one, 12, which is green. It went like red ink. But I tell you what, within 5 or 6 days, the chick stopped dying. So I learnt from that. And it's always marked on the calendar. If the birds are bouncing, if they're bending the bars, it doesn't matter. If it says on the calendar, give them Ronovet S, I give them Ronovet S. Because I don't want to be picking half a dozen good birds out of the bin because I haven't done everything that I can. And the other important thing is, we also all sell birds. Well, we have a responsibility to the people that buy our birds, I believe. I hear lots of stories of people buying birds and they die. Well, of course they do, because that's livestock. But if they do, I want it to be not because I could have done something to make sure that I've done everything to make sure that the birds are protected as best I can. So this is a regime I do, and I would recommend that don't wait for it to hit you, because I'd hate to lose 100 and odd hens. I'd be devastated if I lost 100 and odd. So, you know, if it were me, I'd dose with this. I'd dose with this stuff. I was asked by Kevin Bohr to try this. Now, I won't, if I try something, and I said to Kevin, it's all right me trying it, but if it's no good, I'm going to tell people, and if I don't like it, I'm going to tell people. I'm not just going to use it and forget about it. If you want me to use it, then fine, but there'll be a result of me using it. I'll either like it, or I won't like it, or there won't be any difference. And it was halfway through the breeding season, and I'd bred 100 birds, and it was fine. And he asked me if I'd try it. So I trialled it for the back half of last year. And the hatchability continued, the chicks grew, all of that was fine. But the bit I noticed was the adults. The adults were in absolutely pristine condition right through the breeding stage. Because when I get visitors, I'll sometimes pull a bird out of the breeding cage and I'll put it in a showcase for people to look at. And I was pulling birds out. You could just tell, you could just feel. It was as if you were getting them ready for show. The condition of the birds, the adults particularly, while on this stuff, is great. So I'm using it again this year, and I'm absolutely delighted with it. I'm not saying it's the cheapest, but for me, it does what it says on the tin, which is why I'm mentioning it here. If it didn't, it wouldn't be part of my presentation. I'm not here to sell product for people, but I am here to recommend something if I genuinely, hand on heart, believe it's a good product and it works. And I think that does, which is why I'm happy to mention it. Start it. Bottled water. I always end up in a debate with people over bottled water. Oh no, you know, if the sun gets through the plastic and it's this, it's that, it's the other. The one thing that you can't control in your bird room, apart from the weather, is the water, if you get it out the tap. Put it through a carbon filter, doesn't take the chemicals out. Boil it, doesn't take the chemicals out. The one thing, when we do all this that we do to try and control the right atmosphere and everything for the birds, We go to the tap and take it out the tap, or we boil it. Like a lot of people who breed, I bet there's some people in who probably got koi. And when you speak to koi people, I went to talk to a top koi guy, and he said, you don't give your the birds and stuff out the tap, do you? I said, what? He said, don't give them, honestly. He said, boiling it, carp won't make any difference. They do a flush, and they flush a third of the pond, and they never do it of a weekend. They always do it in the middle of the week, because of a weekend, the chemical people just go like that and dump the chemicals in. You might notice a taste. Well, can you imagine giving your birds on the day or a couple of days after all the chemicals, in the middle of breeding season, all of a sudden, the quality of your water changes because you have no control over it. The impact that that can have on your breeding season and the health of your birds is unmeasurable, really, but we don't think about it because we take water every day. Well, size of us compared to a budgie, we stand little changes. I don't think birds do. So I changed to bottled water a long time ago. And when I've recently moved, I'm 2 years where I am now. But before I moved, the house I sold, the guy, oh, so you've got a garage, great. Just a job for me tank. So I've got a big water tank. So do you breed fish? He said, no. He said, I'm a window cleaner. So what do you want a tank for? He said, I wouldn't put that rubbish out the tap on somebody's windows and expect him to pay me for it. So he treats it. So if a guy's not prepared to wash my windows with it, why on earth am I giving it the birds? So it's a control thing. So I use the bottled water, try and get one with no chlorine in or very low chlorine. It's not expensive, but you're back in control again. Nobody's going to suddenly open one of them bottles and put something in and you're going to give it the birds in the middle of a breeding season. So I give bottled water. And I have done for years. I don't get the wet green backsides that you sometimes get with the birds. The drop, everything seemed to improve. And it's a long time since I've used tap water. There's all the mixes on the market. Champion, blend, this, that and the other, and 3 of this, 2 of that, 1 of the other, 4 of the other, all this wonderful mix. And I'm sure there's stuff in it that the birds will eat and do okay. But what we have to understand is that commercial seed, and it is commercial because we don't get it straight from the farmer, is past its sell-by date. By that I mean all the goodness has been dried out of the seed. You can't transport green seed. If a bird hits a crop in the wild, it'll hit it when it's green, because that's when it's full of goodness. You can't transport commercially green damp seed. So it's over-ripened, over-dried, and we get it polished and we give it the birds. And that's the basic staple diet. But that's why we have to do other things. So whatever the different seeds are, don't really come to life until you soak them, and I'll come to that. So I give 50-50. I've tried all the different mixes. I give 50-50. If you use a hopper, which I do in the flights, it's important that you don't give a big seed variety, because they'll pick out the bits they want and throw the rest of it all over the floor. And when you clean your birds out, you need to be built like Jeff Capes, because it should be full of husks and it's virtually solid seed you're throwing away because they've scattered it looking for the bits they want. So I give 50-50 seed. And Jack millet is the only other seed I give on its own. It's high protein, it's a soft seed. The chicks and the birds love it, so I give that as a separate seed. And if you notice, the word I've used is soft food, not egg food. And I'll come to that. Sprouted seed. The finest thing you can give your birds. Because having said that the seed's dead, a lot of the life's gone out of it, the minute you germinate it, all the amino acids, all the vitamins, everything comes flooding back into that seed. So that's at the... But soaking seed, you need to rinse it, you need to make sure you're on top of it so it doesn't smell. I never ever rinse the soak oats that's got a big husk on the outside, because I'm never confident I can get everything out of the husk if it's damp and it gets mouldy. So it's only small seeds, and you can buy seed for soaking, and I germinate them. And it's only, I haven't put it in the presentation, but recently Alan Adams put me on to a machine that Garden Feathers do, and it's like a propagator. And you put it in the trays, and every now and again the spray comes at the top and rinses it through. You have to rinse the machine out. Within 48 hours you've got great big long sprouts, and it makes it so much easier to do. Because that is so beneficial for the birds. Because don't forget the seed eaters. And we're giving them mostly dead seed. So you sprout it. So my mix for my soft food is that. just vegetables, which dehydrated carrot. I used to get the blenders out and I used to buy all the fresh veg and blend it and do all the rest of it. And then I went to this dehydrated vegetable that Alan Adams does. And the birds were just as good on it. It's human quality. It's I know Sam does a similar product. You know, it's human quality. And that's the staple for my soft food, them two. Now, because it's very wet and moist, I add sweet corn to that as well. And because it's very wet and moist, to stiffen it up a bit, I used to use egg food. Well, I now use chick crumb, but I use the organic. Because some chick crumb, it's got various different stuff in it that's designed for chickens, and it's a medication. Don't use it. If you want to medicate your birds, you decide. You don't give it them every single day in the breeding season. So I use the organic. That absorbs the moisture, and of course it's full of goodness on its own because it's used for raising chicks. A bag that size, I think, was about £4 something. You get a similar bag of egg food and it costs a fortune. So I use that. So my soft food is the just vegetables, the two products of AV Smart that I've had, chick crumb, dry naked oats, I don't soak it. And then what I do is I give that every other day, and then every other day I give a probiotic. I know you've had Libby Harris here, and Libby Harris really speaks on that we don't really use probiotic enough. And when you speak to a lot of these people, bird nutritionists, they keep coming back to probiotic, and I don't think we do. So in the breeding season, every other day, the soft food will have that probiotic in it, and then the other days it has that in it. And of course, millet sprays we soak in solar sand just for hygiene. Now, having said I don't use egg food, I'm aware that some people do use egg food. So this is something that Martin Aylan and Jack Coyton brought out, and I've put it on there because the reason I put it on there, I'm not trying to sell their product, but Martin, because we're mates, gave me a big bag of it. And he kept telling me off for not using his egg food. And I said, I don't use egg food, Martin. I'm not going to use it. I don't use it. Anyway, I run out of chick crumb and I used it. And they ate every single bit. Because I don't give mine in finger draws, I give it in dishes. And the birds loved it. The birds loved it. And I know a lot of people are using it. So if I was going to use an egg food, I'd try that one. I just don't use egg food. I just touched then on finger draws. For those of you that use egg food, have a look, and it wouldn't surprise me if you find Niger seeds in it. Now, those that have heard this talk from me before know exactly what I'm going to say. I'm a bit cynical, I am, and I think these people that make egg food like that, the commercially, why are you putting Niger seed in an egg food? I'll tell you why, because the birds love it. So you put a finger draw in, and they go, where's my Niger seeds? And they start kicking all the egg food out over the floor. You come to the cage and think, oh, they love it, I'll give them some more. So you put some more in, and you eat the Niger seeds and throw the egg food on the floor again. So if you're giving that egg food, it's got the Niger seeds, give it in a dish. Because you will then see if they're eating the egg food. If they're eating the egg food, fine. If you find that you're getting a dish of egg food minus the Niger seeds, you know you're wasting your money because they're not eating it. You've got to try and get them to eat it. The only stuff I give in egg food is this. Because having took egg out of the diet, why do we give egg? Most of the old budgie breeders will tell you it's because it's protein. And at the time, it was seen as the best way of giving birds protein. And although we've moved on in the hobby, we still stuck with this egg. So it's for protein. Well, that's a very high protein powder. So I give that. And I'll give that in finger draws because the consistency is the same. So they don't look through it to throw anything out because it's the same consistency from top to bottom. It's like the old, I don't know if any of you remember, the old Maxi feed that you used to get. Smith and Wainwright used to do it. And really high protein, the birds loved it, but you couldn't get it anymore. This is now very close to it.
What is that, Harry? What's
it's called Thrive and Gloss. Thrive and Gloss. If I can just see if I can get this. There we go. For those of you that use Alan's products, it's the same. It comes from Alan. It's called Thrive and Gloss. And it's really high protein. But it's a consistency, see. When you're using it for the chicks, they'll just, the birds will eat it, they'll eat plenty of it, and I'm happy to give that in finger draws. Going back to the breeding side of it, he's brought this spray out, and a lot of you will know Mick Freeborn. And poor old Mickey's had breeding issues. And when Alan first put that on his stall, Mick Freeborn, when he's circling the BS, would go back to Alan's stall, Alan would squirt it for a bit, he'd breathe it, and off he goes. And back around again. It's eucalyptus. And it's really, you put it in the birds room, my wife can smell it as she's coming down the garden. So when you're in there, it's handy to give it just a couple of squirts. It's like a eucalyptus. It's quite a high concentrate. It's good. I like the smell of it. And it's obviously, for me, I think, another breed in it. The number of times I see that number of eggs in a box, even champions. Now, nature makes a hen, lays loads of eggs, well, not unless you've got these great big huge hens, but normally a normal size hen will lay a lot of eggs. And it's on the basis of just playing the numbers game. I lay a lot of eggs, some will hatch, and everything's fine. When you breed an exhibition budget, I don't want to lose one egg. That might be the club show winner. So you leave a hen sitting that number of eggs, there'll be some people say, oh, I've done it, and they're fine. The hen goes out, the hen starts sitting, and she sits these, and she can't cover them, so you've got them covered. She goes out, comes back in, only this time she decides to sit there. So then 3 eggs that have addled and gone dead, she's now got under her. 2 or 3 of the good ones are now outside, so they'll addle. She goes out, comes back, she says, do you know what, I think I'll sit in this position. And before you know it, you could lose a clutch of eggs. Don't leave them that many. So move them. Now, to move them, you need to mark them. And some people say, I don't like to mark them. I don't want to transfer bacteria. Well, I'd sooner keep my fingers clean and mark them because you're in control. It might be that you move egg number 6, 7, 8 and 9. Or it might be that to coincide with another box, you move 1, 2 or 3. Don't move a lot of the early ones because the hen might think the eggs have gone off and scatter them. So if I move them, I like to take them at the back end and match them up to other pairs. I don't mind taking a couple at the beginning, but if you take half the first clutch, if that hen suddenly thinks, hang on, these aren't coming, she can scatter them. So, but by marking them, again, it's back to this control again. You're back in control, you can do something about it. So I mark them so I know what I'm going to do. I don't like any more than 3 chicks in a box either. The inside of my boxes are not very wide, so that what happens is 3 chicks in that box, 3 chicks are going to get fed better than 5. So there's 3 chicks being fed properly. Because it's not a very big area, 3 pretty well feathered chicks, mum in there, dad in, there's no room. I see some people boxes, they're like that. Well, why not just put a TV in there and put a toilet in, you don't have to come out. It's not really good for fertility. The small box will mean that they will go in there and feed the chicks, the hen will raise them, but the cock will spend more time out the box because there isn't enough room for him. Now, when he's out the box more, when the hen comes out, he's keen, he's enthusiastic, and I really think it helps fertility. The other thing is, you talk to most stockmen, and whatever you breed, whatever the animal, any young animal, whether it's a bird or an animal, a dog or a pig or whatever, they'll have heat. It's important that all young animals have heat for growth, so that the food that's going in through the mouth is used for growth, not to be converted into keeping them warm. You get these great big boxes, you can have a chick up one corner, a chick up the other corner, losing body heat, and they will not grow to the full potential. So you keep it condensed, keep them all in the one area, they'll look after them, the cock will spend more time out. You can always tell, you walk in an aviary that's got big boxes, and do it as an example, try and find a cockbird when you're in there. You won't see many, they're in there with the hen. You find those that have got the small, narrow or deep boxes, and most of the cocks are outside, because there's just not enough room for them all to get in there. So it's something that I've done again, and over the years I've found actually aids fertility. And 3 to a pair I think is plenty. Now when you see this going on, there's a chip there, chip there, chip there, you've got the dark line. There's something going on in that egg. That's not normal. Because chicks, as you know, they chip all the way around and push the egg off. Well, that's not going, it's in one area. That discoloration tells me that chick is stuck in that shell. It's not moving. It's getting ready for hatching, it's chipping anywhere it can, but it can't turn properly. And this is a devastating time. What do? You can hear it squeaking. Right, I'll help it out. You open the shell, yolk sac. Finished. You don't open it out, you think it'll be out in the morning, dead in shell. Nightmare. This next tip is something that I've used over and over, and I've saved loads of chicks doing this without having to open the shell. Watch that egg. When I've got the music on, it's like it's dancing to the music. That's an active chick. If you put the egg in the water and it doesn't move much, then it doesn't matter what your records say on the box, that chick is probably not ready for coming out, even though you've seen the chip marks. Because when you put it on, we mark when the eggs are laid and we work out the number of days. What we don't know is when did she start sitting. So there's always 2 or 3 days either side. It's only a guide. And when you're opening an egg, it can be dynamite. By doing that, I have saved loads of chicks that way, because the whole egg gets moist, it absorbs into the shell, it seems to free the bird up so it can move, and 9 times out of 10, I can honestly say I've gone in the following day, and when an egg's been moving around like that, it's out. But if it's not moving much, that tells me, thank God I haven't opened it, because it's not actually ready. There's nothing to panic about. So it's an easy trick. You have the water just tepid, and you have it in for about 20, 30 seconds. Then take it out and put it back. So then when you get the chick out, I've also been to aviaries where the champions open the box, and I'm saying champion because I expect more from champions. Beginners, I expect you make mistakes. And they pull the chick out and said, I put that in there this morning, it hasn't been fed. And it's been there all morning, and it's got no food in it. I'll just put it in here because they're feeding. Well, not that one they had. Because if a chick doesn't shout for food, you put it wherever you like, with as good a mother as you like, and it won't get fed. The chick has to, pigeon men will nip the toes. That's why they call them squeakers. They nip the toes. So if there's a bird not being fed, so it squawks like mad, and the hen will give it attention. These toes are a bit small to pinch, aren't they? So if I get to a chick that's hatched, even if there's 3 or 4 in that box, all been fine. If I get and there's a new chick, I go off and mix up some egg food, some milk. When I come back, quite often it's been fed. But if it hasn't, I feed it. Even though there's 2 or 3 siblings in the box that have been fed. Because that chick might have had an awful job getting out the shell. It might just be too weak to call. Doesn't mean it's a weak chick, but it's shattered. Well, if it doesn't call, she won't feed it. The fact she'll feed those that are shouting for food. The fact that chick doesn't shout, she won't feed it. So again, I'm back to the control bit. If I get to a box, new chick, don't care if the hen's fed it or not, I feed it with the SMA. The next one is crop feeding, which I'm going to go on to the next slide. And I use that hand rearing food. The crop needle to me is one of the best things ever came into the fancy. And there's a lot of nervousness about using crop tubes. You'll see a video in a minute or two of me actually crop feeding babies. And it's just a confidence thing. But it saves lives. Without it, birds will die. You know, now you've got a crop tube, you can actually intervene and help feed the babies. You can feed a baby with a teaspoon. Just get warm milk, just dip its beak in, just prise its beak open, let it take the milk. And you'll see it going at the crop. My missus always tells me when she sees this, you better clean your nails. In a minute when I give it some more, it'll turn over when it's having it. Now I'll put that back in the box. It's fed. I don't have to wait for the hen. It's fed. Put it in the box. The heat of the hen. Hopefully, it buys time. Sometimes, if it's the first chick and the hen hasn't fed, so she's not fed the others, you have to then feed it again. If I've done it twice and the hen doesn't feed, and this is where you need bottle, is you take a bigger chick from another box and put that in. And you think, I'm risking a bigger chick now from another box. But I'll tell you what, the number of times that does it, it's bigger, it's more boisterous, it calls more. And then when she feeds that, out that comes and the little one goes back. And you put it back. Now crop feeding. It goes down the left-hand side or the right, whichever, to the side, and you must be vertical to the bird. You must be vertical to the bird. On the next slide, you'll see the crop needle on the front of the crop. That's not me making a mistake, I'm doing it on purpose to show you, so you can see where it is. Because if you've got any doubt and you can see it, hold it. Just pinch the crop needle, because you know where it is, you can see it. See it? So I know the crop needle's in the middle, because I showed it there. If you've got any nerves, you can just pinch it and hold the crop needle. Don't overfill, because you don't want to block the airway. Saves lives. If you have an ill bird and you have to medicate it, quite often they die through starvation, not the reason you're medicating it for. Because what happens is you put the medication in the drinking water, they might drink, they might not, but if it's not feeling very well, sure as eggs is eggs, it won't eat. So it won't even get a chance to take the medication. It'll die. So if you have cause to medicate a bird, then don't let it die through starvation. You can actually add the medication to the crop food and feed it together, or just put it direct in the crop if you want, or if you can see it's drinking but it's not eating, you can feed it. So a crop needle is a really, really important part of the kit. And if you're not confident in using it, go to somebody else that is, and they will show you, and just do it over and over again, because it's a really important part of the kit for looking after budgies today. So this is really about how I came back at the hobby and the path I've took, because I was talking to Jeff before, when you've got a stud of birds, to make a change and influence a change on a full stud of birds is hard. You can buy all the outcrosses you like. You can, once you start to go down a certain road, to change direction for that particular stud is hard. And that's why some people get disillusioned when they go out and buy stock birds. They pay a lot of money, bring it in. And what happens is, your stud is so defined the way you've bred it, it quickly dilutes the outcross. So you don't really get the impact you want to do. So when you get the opportunity to start like I have, I've had budgies 45 years, so you actually think, right, I'm going to do this time or that time. So, and this will explain the way that I've developed the stud of birds that we're putting together today. So I sold the birds to Alan Adams. That was the agreement. I sold them to Alan for far less than I could have got elsewhere. And the agreement I raised with Alan was that if I came back into budgies in a short space of time, I could go and hand-pick some pairs to take away and breed. The wire cages I could have because they were mine, and the nest boxes were mine. We've been mates for years, Alan, so I had no doubt that that's what would happen. And that's what happened. I went to Alan's. I hand-picked, I think it was 12 pair of birds. Some good friends gave me 10 pair each of pet birds, poor quality birds that I used as fosters. And for the first 2 years, all I bred with, the first year I bred 50 birds from these birds back of mine. Then the birds went back to Alan. I then dropped a bird in from Chris Huxley and one from Mike Ball, and the rest of it was virtually mine. So I bred for another year with mine. And then I went abroad, and I'll come to that. But the good thing for me was when Alan had the birds, I helped him pair them. Because when I've seen some really good stud of birds sold over the years, and the thing the person's never bought is the breeder. And to be perfectly honest, without the breeder, you've just got a collection of birds that somebody's done very, very well with. So that's the bit that was always missing. Well, with Alan, I went and paired the birds with Alan and Gina. And the first year, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying, but he won't have to because he's going to be recording now, but he won't mind me saying, is that the first year he got hit with French moult. And what happened was, you put two flocks of birds together and the stress level went through the roof. Because you were merging two flocks of birds. Two flocks of birds come together in the wild and there'd be trouble. And there was trouble. And it caused French moult. Super, super babies. But he had French moult. And then the following year, he was over that and he started to show the birds. So it was very satisfying for me. For example, this show, South Cheshire Gold Champ show, you know it's a good show. In 2010, Alan had Best Young Bird in show, Best Champion Young Bird and Best Young Bird. And you know in our area, the same as the shows that you guys have, it takes some doing. There's quality birds. So that was a credible result. I was pleased with that. The same year, he went to the Lancashire and Cheshire area champ show, different bird, and he had best young bird again. Well, that was great for me, because Alan would tell you he got rid of most of his own and he was working with the birds I had. And when I saw the stud then, that was probably the best budgies I'd ever had. They probably peaked. It was heartbreaking to let them go, but it's not like having a fishing rod you can put away. When you've got issues in your life, these birds depend on us. And it had reached such a good level, it was best to move on and pass them to Alan. And Alan now does his own thing. I paired him for 2 years. Alan and Gina paired him the way they do, and it's their stud of birds. I still get an odd bird back. We're good friends, we work together, and I've got one this year, and I'll still get another bird back, because although I'm developing a different bird, as you'll see, I've always strongly believed in size, shape, balance and deportment. We get obsessed with feather. You will see some really heavy feathered birds. We need them, because it's easier to pull back than go forward. So I genuinely believe these extreme birds have a place in the bird room, but that's where they should stay. And the bird that you put out in the show cage at a show, I want, as a judge, to be able to look along and go, that'll do, boom, put it straight up. Because all the other birds have got to beat it. If you do that as a judge, you might sort it out. But if you have that impact bird, that bird which is size, shape, balance and deportment, well, the old stud of birds I had was really heavily bred for that. You know, I like to think, and I had comments from people saying, well, we can always tell your birds. Because one is I always turn them out spot on if I can get it. And the second thing is they've got to have that pleasing size, shape and swank. They're an exhibition budgie, not just a big lump of feathers. Now, you will see some heavy feathered birds, but the birds I tend to try and show are the swanky, shapely birds. So I still go back to my old stud to get that, to drop that in. So for 2 years, I used my own birds. Then, so this is my old line, which was Topless, Pilkington, Mannis, Huxley and Marchant. And these are birds from the old line. That was a Joe Mann's bird. Back then, I guess it's no different to now, only I use different birds. I always saw what I call the European bird, although I'm nowhere in Europe. But the bird from abroad, Joe Mann's was the guy at the time that bred this different bird. You know, the big pussy face, the lovely tight dense feather, and as a result of that, the big round spot. Because spot is governed by feather, not flecking, nothing to do with flecking. And they were pleasing birds. So I always used to use a bit of Mann's birds in with my line anyway. I now do a similar thing by using the European bird, but I don't use Joe's. I've got Halen and Lutoff, which I'll come to. So that was my old line. This cock here was the best budgie I ever bred. Controversial really, because I think I had 15 best in shows with that cock. But he would pick a fight. If I put him in a cage on his own, if he could fight himself, he would. You know, he'd always have feathers missing. Now, when he was a baby, I showed him at the club show, and he had a line of flecking right across there, right across the front. And I remember Joe Mann's judging. He won the baby CC, which I was delighted with, because I knew he had this line. And when it come up for best young bird, you could see Joe pointing, and quite right, down it went. He still got players for champion breeder. Following year, paired him up, it disappeared. That isn't a problem. If it had just been the flecking that had gone, that would have been fine. But you've got a fighter here that whenever I used to show, sometimes I'd show him, he'd have feathers missing. Well, it used to upset me that some people said, what have you done to his head? Where's the flecking gone? Implying that I'd doctored his head up. And then when he was in full fettle and he had all the feather, I couldn't resist that. I used to shove him in the... I said, what do you think of that then? When he had all the feathers. It's a side of the hobby, I'm afraid. But he was a super bird. He come really close at the club show twice to get him best adult, beat on a split decision. And then once I put it in the wrong cage, which people don't let me forget about, but that's another thing. But probably the best show that I've ever had. You shouldn't expect to get best in show. Whenever I sent that bird out, I expected to get best in show. And that's not being arrogant. I just loved him. And he was a natural show bird. And he had a lot of best in shows. And that is a feature I don't want to lose from the birds. No matter which way I go, no matter how I develop them, no matter what feather I use, I come back to this lad as an example. I want that swank and style and shape. Because as a judge, most of the judges, it makes their job easy if you've got a bird like that in the class. Mike Ball used to come to me. I remember Mike Bow, when he first came to me, he said, "You're my last chance. I've been ripped off, I've been stitched up, I've been this, that and the other. If you don't help me, I'm going to pack in." He has that much to say now. I'm sure a few people probably think, "Well, Harry, what have you done?" Yeah, but I like Mike. He's a good stock man and he knows what he's doing and he likes his particular type of bird. Well, we became good friends. But when I came back in, it was my turn to knock on the door and say, "Right, Mike, I want some of your cinnamons to put back into mine." And I've been doing it every year since. And this is that's Mike's best cock. May not, there's a video on Facebook on it. That's his best bird, and I've got a son off that. I had that bird. That was one I had off Mike, and that was a brother, I think. So I'd identified this feature that this breeder had that I wanted to add to mine. So I'd spent 2 years putting the foundation. It was what I'm going to do now. So Mike was one of the birds that I added. I then went to Belgium to judge a baby show, and Alan Adams came with me. And for those of you that judge in Belgium, they love the hobby. It's great fun. You know, the cages aren't all the same size. It doesn't matter. It's just a great place to go, and they enjoy the birds. And I was judging the baby show. And when you do the baby, when you judge, you're allowed to pre-judge. You're allowed to walk round. And I was walking round, and because it's being recorded, I won't say what I said, but I stopped in front of this bird at 4.5 months old, and I'd never seen a bird like that because it wasn't like the English bird. The typical English bird is a square box type head. We had the keyhole bird, we came away from the keyhole bird, now you've got the back skull bird. And when they flatten, they don't particularly look a lot, but when they sit and they blow, they've got a lovely outline and a nice shape, nice and thick through there. But it's a box. That's more like an owl. The shoulder comes up, it tapers into the top of the head. You've got the width over the top of where it comes down and round. Beautiful big spots. For a big bird, tight feather, and look where the feet, you'll hear me mention the feet quite a lot in this presentation because not a lot of people actually look at the feet of a bird. And you can tell if a bird's wrong because it stands like that. Feet close together, fill the cage, absolutely superb. Fell in love with it straight away. It had best young bird, and it was a guy called Andre Goosens who packed him, but he's now back. So Alan and I both thought, well, we're going to have a bit of this. And I became good friends with Martin Hale, and while we were over there, I went to visit Martin, and Alan was with me. Alan brought 3 birds back, I think I brought 5. And that started a good friendship with Martin, but it also started me developing this new type of bird. Because the best way example I can give, that is an English feather, and that is a European feather. An English feather typically is long and narrow, and you get the lovely blow and the feature that we're used to. A European feather is short and broad, and quite often you get the flat head, but it goes that way. Now, it's a combination of the two. Lutoff's doing it. There's 1 or 2 people over here who do it, that what I call feather engineer. They're making a bird rather than just putting birds together. I found that a challenge, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to see if I could keep my swanking style from the birds that I had before, but develop this feather where I want it here, not all over. And that's the road I'm going down, and you'll see some birds to demonstrate where I'm going with it. So these were the Martin Hale birds. I've just had that off him this year. That is a bird I had 2 years ago, and you'll see a dynasty. When you'll see, there's a family of cinnamons, and you'll see the videos. And the key bird is this bird. That's what they've come down from. And that was I judged that as a baby. Martin said, "I don't like that." I said, "Well, I'll have it then when it's finished." And it won. And true enough, the following year I had it. And the grey-greens that you'll see come down from this lad here. But it's a different feather. If you look, it's like, and the best description I can give is like an owl, which is not the typical English type bird. So I wanted to pinch that feather off there. So this is how the new line. These are new birds by using my old line and the new features. And they're different. The main thing, I mean, if you look, that's a big spot, but look how round it is. For us to get that size spot on what I call a pure English bird, it would travel up the feather. And the reason it travels up is it can't go that way because the feather's not wide enough. So, you know, people, what do fleck birds do? Well, they breed your fleck birds. I mean, people say flecking is because it increases the size of spot on your bird. My opinion, not true. They visibly normally have big spots, the fleck birds. But flecking's a fault. And when you put the big spot in, that's fine, but you put in the flecking in as well. I don't like it. I've got some, because you throw the baby out with the bathwater if you get rid of all your fleck birds. But I'm really, really critical with it. I really don't like it. But I found that I can put the spot on the bird and big spot and almost round by giving them a wider feather. And by doing that, I use the European blood. So that's the bird I had best in show at our members show last week with that. Golden face family. I really dropped on with that family. I had a golden face bird, Goosens bred, and they bred super. I've had a few best young birds in the show from them. I'll show sky blue in a bit that's brother to that. But you get the big spot, you get the lovely dense feather and clean. More birds from the same family. This has bred me a lovely grey this year. That bird's not quite as big, but this is what you call the composite bird. I'm getting the height of putting the English in, so you've got to put that longer, narrow feather. So the sacrifice is I don't quite get the size spot, but nonetheless, good enough, good enough. And this blue is the brother to the golden face. So the birds are different. I can see that they're different. They're different to our bred before, but I want to still keep that shape. This is the grey-green off that last shot. As you can see, it's got the English, yeah, the back skull, but hopefully it's denser here. You can still see through it, but it's a little denser. So that's like composite bird. It's got the English, but I'm getting a dense feather. Didn't quite get the size spot, but I'm not worried about that. This again is from this bird had a big influence on the stud. It's the bird of bred. Cobalt. Mixture of feathers, so you can see the spot starting to travel up the feather. And you see the long black stripes. Right. But if you can see the feather, it comes down. It doesn't just go to the side. It comes down and around. It looks like somebody's gone like that with a beak. And that again, I find, is a European feature. This is the sky cock. I had a best young bird in show with this bird. Beautiful shape. I bred 5 chicks off it, then it died. And I was really gutted about it. Brother to the golden face. But he has a lovely position. His feet are close together. He's stood like a soldier. He's got the thick back skull. And he's got the nice round spots. Lovely, lovely bird. You know, nice bird to look at. Balanced, but it had the feather where I wanted it. This is more of a stock cock. This is a pied bred last year. He's very wide across here, really good through the shoulder. He could do with slightly deeper mask, but he's got that fan type feather that I want to put on the bird. There's a big issue going on and raising in Germany in particular about feather and birds being able to see. Well, even a pet bird, the eyes are on the side of the head. And it turns to the side to look at you. Even pet, they turn to the side to look at you. So the issue of the feathering going across there, for me, isn't the problem. It's when it wraps round. And some of them, they start to go that way. I've got a grey that's going that way a bit, but it doesn't wrap right round. Now, I accept that's an issue. But not the fan here, not that bit, because when you turn the bird to the side, you can see its eye. Its eye's clear, you can see its eye. And the bird will look at you from side to side. So we're okay there as long as we don't wrap it round. This is a bar red last year. He had everything that I wanted as a bar red, and I've got 3 shots of him, one as a juvenile and then one in the flight as an adult. But this bird has got the square back skull. It's not something like an owl, it's got the square back skull, which was the English influence. It's got the dense feather. Really dense feather. And he's ended up with a decent mask as well. This is him as a juvenile. You'll see another feather. This feather's tightened up. When you put weight on, you don't see this feather. But he's a good shape. He's got that fan. But if you notice, see how it comes down? Doesn't just go to the side. It comes down and then around. And he's got a decent mask. He's got a decent mask as well. And he's got a good shape. See, see the feet again. And it's like a carrot. Well, even though I know that our ideal is changing over the years, the one thing that we don't have to lose, that carrot shape can still be achieved with the feather, as long as we put it here and not put it all over the bird. This is a shot of him in the flight now as an adult. And he's totally changed again. He's filled out. His feet are still close together. Look, he has a good shape on the perch. The feather does come down and round. He's got a good mask. He's nice and solid. He's one of my favourite cocks, this cock. But when it pans out again, you'll see that shape. In actual fact, I guess it's a little too upright. I like it. I like it. But it really, according to the directive, should be... But I do like that shape. I love that shape of a bird. This is the bird that I won with at weekend. I've had 2 CCs with this cock. And the son of it, I actually finished the presentation on the son as well. You'll see the son in a minute. He's got it all going on here. And when he looks from the side, that is like a golf ball on the top of the head. I mean, he's not fit there, because when I did this, which was last year, he was in the breeding cage. But again, the round spots, feet close together, right shape on the perch. And bringing that really good. This was his baby last year. I think you visited me last year, didn't you? Didn't I had this in the box, I think, when you guys came last year. Yeah. And again, for a barhead, you're looking, he's got the dense feather there, great, look at the beak, yeah, he's got great depth of mask. Looks a bit short there, but as it happens, it ends up a decent bird. And this is the bird molted out. Now, I don't want it coming any further round than that. When he turns his head, you can see his eyes. But there's a tendency for some to wrap it round. But that's okay, I don't mind that. But you can see straight away it's different. It's a different type of a bird. Again, look at the feet. The feet are together. Nice shape on the perch. Give him plenty of blow and a good mask. Baby cinnamons, I found with some of the babies, they look huge as babies, and then they sort of like grow into the skin, if you will. When they molt out, they balance out. And that was about it. And you'll see a picture of it molted out in a minute. Again, you can see even as a baby, it's got the good width, good depth of mask, good spot. And this is the bird molted out. A little bit of flecking, but he's trimmed a bit. It was like what I call puppy fat. It was just chubby baby, and he's trimmed out of it. That's at Ray Winsper's now. That. Another cinnamon from the cinnamon line. Again, good shape on the perch. Not massive shoulders, but got it all going on where I want it, which is around there. Again, when you are mixing the 2 feathers, so the spot is starting to travel again up the feather a little bit, but still good spots, I haven't paired, this was a late bred last year. Again, from the same cinnamon family that all come down from Cinnamon Grey Lutoff's 144. And he's made a really nice baby. But he was so late bred, I didn't get a chance to pair him up, but he'll be used this year. Again, I've gone from the flathead, the dense feather, but actually getting that bit of lift now by mixing the 2 feathers together. And I like that shape. I like that shape. This is a split dilute. I've started to introduce dilute into the birds. I don't want to be a specialist breeder of these colours, but if you get a dilute pop out the box of normals, quite often it'll be a good one because it's predominantly normal bred. When you make dilute to dilute, I think you lose something sometimes. He's off a really good light green cock and a dilute hen. Again, he was late bred last year, him and his sister, and I haven't used them, but this year I'll be making them to dilutes. And he's got that composite feather. It's still the English blow, but a little bit denser. Again, the spots are a nice shaped spot. This is one of the few small spotted cocks I bred, and he's got more of the long feather, but he's got the fan of the European. I had the best young bird in show with that last year. It features on the slide in a bit. The family he comes from are all big spotted birds. He just happened to come out with a small spot. But if you look at look at how wide that feather is. It's impossible. I can mate it to as many fleck birds as I like. I can't make that spot any bigger, can I? Because if you look at the feather, it's actually touching the sides of the feather anyway. So why has he got small spots? Because the feather isn't broad enough. Nothing to do with flecking or anything like that. So it's the feather that I need to change. Now we're going to see it like a dynasty, if you will, of cinnamons now. This cinnamon was bred from that original Martin Halen one, the yellow face, if you remember me saying to you. That's the bird that has set a bit of a dynasty going. This was it as a baby last year. Good depth of mast. Again, it's coming down. We'll have that fan. This is him molted out. He's ring number 1, and the reason I remember that is because I pulled his tail out. He came flying out of one of them flights. I grabbed up the bird. Well, you know what I had in my hand, don't you? Everything but the bird. I had his flights, the secondary flights, to take everything, and they never come back, which is frustrating. Whether he would have dropped it, I don't know, but I put that down to me. Again, he's got the nice blow, nice fan cap, good size spots. So the grey-green, I'm doing a talk in May next year at the convention, and it's one that I did 10 or 11 years ago at the BS, and it's called Cock to Cock. And I won't go into that, I'm going to do it in May, but that's the one I get asked about more than any of the ones I've ever done, because that's how I pair my birds. So this cock, I wanted to pair to the grey-green cock that I like. And I put those two cocks in a cage, and that was the pair I wanted to put together. But I wouldn't get very many eggs, would I? So what I did is I went looking for a sister to the grey-green cock. And this is sister to the grey-green cock. Yes, she's flecked, he's clean, comes from a clean line. In my mind, I'm mating him to the grey-green. So I paired those two together. This is the first chick. That really follows what I would say the English line, the back skull, the square box type head. She's made a lovely hen. Not too extreme, made a nice hen. Chick number 2, however, for a barred, years ago we would have thought that was a feather duster. We'd have had it in the box and thought, God, that's never going to live, it's a feather duster. Than what I call now these extreme birds. There's a big thing about extreme and long flights, and I'll go into that later in the presentation. So that ended up quite a big extreme bird. He's made a good bird, but he's certainly not a bird that I could show or would show. And this is him molted out. So he's this year's baby, so I'll be looking forward to pairing that in the breeding cage this year. He's developed a very long extreme feather on the head. He's got a good depth of mast when he's trimmed out, super depth of mast. But even though he's a big bird, you can see there he's active. And look at the feet again. So even though I'm putting size on and I've got the size, the shape of the bird inherently really, the feet are in the right position, so this should be the right shaped bird. This was chick number 3. Similar to the second bird, but if you notice, nowhere near as dense. The other one was really thick and still a good baby, but not as dense. That bird, I think, is the best budgie I've ever bred now. I've only shown him this 3 times this year. I haven't had a chance to get him out yet, but he's made a super bird. He's huge when he fills the cage, but he's balanced. He hasn't got stupid long tails or flights or anything. But he's a big bird. So from that pair, you're getting a variety of different feather and shapes because you're mixing the two together. This is him in the flight. Again, look at the feet. He's a huge bird. And as long as you carry the feet in that position, he will always have good shape. And he's a big cock. He's a big bird. He's broad across the shoulder. He's got the longer type spot rather than the round one. He's got the lovely capping I like, nice and thick through the shoulder. And she's all from one pair, so you can see how they're different. This is the younger brother. Again, you can see plenty of dents on your bar head. You can see the dents. Now, these few ticks, they don't look like they're going to be big spots, but he's actually got good spots. So you can never tell even seeing that. The next slide of him molted out, he's part molted, so the spots are a bit up here yet. But now he's molted, they're down here. He's got a good mouth. Again, you see good depth of mask. And them spots, those two now are down here. You've actually filled the mask in. But all of them are different. From the same pair, and it's because there's two different types of feather being put together. This is now at Ray Winsper's. I did a thing with Ray where I borrowed the cock of his, paired it to me and split the chicks. But that bird's got the European type feather come in, the nice dense feather, but we've got the good spot. Baby cock this year. Not related to the other cinnamons, but the interesting thing is, look at all that feather. But you'll see it molted out in a minute, it disappears. You see them and they're like feather dusters, you think, oh, here we go. And then when they molt and they what I call grow into the skin, the feathers tighten up. But again, as a baby, she's got the nice directional feather there, lovely depth of mask. And this is molted out. Quality is not brilliant. I do everything I do now with my mobile phone, which is, if they're close, it's fine. When they're a distance in the flight, you lose some of the quality. Super hen. Lovely, big, thick, like an owl. Good depth of mask. Nice, thick through the neck. But all that raggedy is gone, look. I lost that, unfortunately. That was a bar red, opaline, like dark green. Again, mixing the two. I've now got the dense feather, but she's bringing it right up, not flat, because she's bringing up the background from the... I lost that, unfortunately. This is my spitting cobra, and you'll see why I say that in a minute. This is one of the last babies I bred this year. I bred that and a grey-green and a couple more. Yeah, I'll have your hand if you come anywhere near me. But as a baby, plenty of back skull, got the dense feather here, good depth of mask, it's a nice baby, nice baby. This is the bird I like. I had best opposite sex young bird at Worcester last year with this. He needs to be critical. I want to put a little bit more feather on him. But it's approaching the type of bird I like, which is thick, with real dense feather. You paint it that colour if you could, for a pied. And these are the birds that there doesn't look particularly wide. But the number of feathers per square inch in that head, I would bet, compared to a great big longer feathered bird, would be far more. And the magic is when you make that type feather to a longer feathered bird. Because of the density of feather and the numbers of feather, you add it and it explodes. It just gives you this big head. And there he is, not long after I brought him back from Worcester. And he's a pleasing bird to look at. Not long, straggly feather, nice, dense feather. I just want to just enlarging that a little bit more. I've got a big mauve hen, Haaland hen, and I'm going to pair it to that to see if I can get a decent violet pied. But I like that. I like the shape. Again, I'm going back to the feet, but look at the feet. you know, stood together, good shape, good shape. This is off a Lutoff cock. It was one of the last ones I bred. She's again got the English, which is more favouring the English type bird. Good depth of mass. She's not very old, cinnamon cobalt spaniel. Again, it's quite grainy because I'm quite away with the mobile phone from it. Right, so now I've developed this different type of bird because I like it. But I live in England. I don't live in Belgium or Switzerland or Germany. I've got to show me birds here. So, you know, the European bird, the pure what I call European bird, is a different type bird and wouldn't fare well, I don't think, being shown over here. And then the English bird, to me, I wanted to develop and change. And we've got this falling out in the hobby over the different types of bird, because the bird that favours the European type bird, that has the flat head and obviously different, everybody's first response is, oh look, it's a longfly. And I'm going to touch on that further on. But, you know, the directive, the BS directive, is absolutely, couldn't be clearer. And that's why, because it's so clear, I wonder why we have the issues we have, because it spells it out. And I'll go into that a little bit further on. So this isn't me saying how well I did and how would the birds do. So in 2014, I showed my first birds in 2014 because I wanted to get back on the judges panel. And I did 2 shows, put 7 birds in each. I think I won a CC, the cobalt cock won a CC, and that was enough for me to qualify back on the panel. The following year, 2015, I had a few more birds to show. I did 3 shows, and I had best young bird at 2 of them. Well, bearing in mind that was 2015, I didn't come back till, or have my first breeding season till 11. I've got a show in champion, and where I am, it's a hotbed. So to me, that was a good indication that the new type of bird could still do well on the bench in the UK. If I'd have been hammered every week, you think, well, it doesn't matter how much I like them. So I think the new type of bird, for me, has got a place. The following year, I did 5 shows. I had another best young bird and a best opposite sex young bird. And I had 28 best of colour or opposite sex in 3 show seasons. That's what the dots are. So me measuring my progress in champion in a tough area, I was pleased. It means that I'm starting to fight my way back into a position where I could have a stud that will challenge for awards. And this year, I've done 3 shows and I've had best opposite sex young bird at 2 of them. So in the last 3 show seasons, the birds are competing in champion and then for top awards. So that to me is a measure of the way that the birds are going. I'm doing okay. This bird, I didn't realise the guy was going to be here, but I know he's here. Unless he's gone. He's gone. It was a bit embarrassing because that bird was here as well. It got best beginner here today as well. It was here again. But I actually try and say to beginners when they come to me, don't buy birds from me. Go to the established studs like Huxley, Marchant, Bowker, people who are, it's on record, they don't want the European bird, they want to breed English bird. Go to them. They've been around a long time, they breed super birds, and the birds will win. I am mixing the European bird, but I'm a champion. So I try and talk people off until they've been in it a while. And then if they come back and say, yes, thanks very much, I hear what you say, but I want some of them now. And then if anybody does want to use them, I'll try and help them and explain how I use them. But these are birds that people have had off me. One of my birds is behind all of those for this year's babies. So for other people over here, they've done all right, which is great. Because if we sell birds, we want people to do well with them. Well, we should do. I think this type of bird does have a place, and they do well for other breeders. But I've also got a relationship with some guys abroad where we swap birds now. And my blood is now going over there, and they're using them. And this grey cock Martin Halen bred off one of my grey cocks, paired to one of his hens. And he won the Belgian national with it when it was 6 months old, that grey. But again, it's got the feet close together, long bird, lots of feather, good spot. That was at Daniel Lutoff. It won again at Karlsruhe this year, because Daniel took it out the breeding cage, brought it over and took it back, because Martin lent it to Daniel. But that's supposed to be coming to me next year. Matthew Billy, another guy over there doing really, really well, had a grey cock off me and he bred that, which then later on turned into that. So this mix of feather for both sides of the channel, if you will, is breeding this type of bird, which I like. Now, long tail or long flight. What frustrates me, and it does frustrate me, I mean, I've had birds 45 years. I've seen them. I've seen the long flights. And I can honestly say, since then, I have never seen one at a show. Now, birds have been disqualified, and I'm only giving my opinion. I have never seen one at a show. And the problem is this. They're different. We're showing in a cage that's 90 years old. It exaggerates the size of a big ugly bird in the cage because of the cage they're in. They shouldn't be at shows if they're unbalanced. But I just wish people would stop calling them long flights or long tails. The directive is very clear, and we'll go into this. And this is the BS directive, not the BS directive. A long flight is a bird that's exhibiting long flight characteristics, i.e. extreme, and it uses that word, extreme length of tail and or flight. Extreme. Well, what you think is extreme and what you think is extreme and what you think... So I understand, but it doesn't say if a bird's tail touches the cage, it's a long flight. It doesn't say that. In actual fact, in the one that went out as a precursor to it, it said it isn't enough for a bird's tail. But the number of times I see people at shows going like this, and they measure by the fact it touches it, the cage is 90 years old. Isn't it any wonder that the bird's tail touches the floor? That is a long tail. I've never seen one of them at a show. But we default to a position with a bird that's got a bit longer tail. Well, if it's got a bit longer tail and it's out of balance, penalise it. But they don't. It'll be disqualified. Then the following show, another judge doesn't think it's extreme and it gets best in show. The BS cannot have a situation, in my opinion, where if a bird is disqualified, as a matter of fact, having consulted with other judges, it should never, ever win a best in show anywhere else. The poles apart. Disqualified, best in show. But it's happening. And it's happening because there's varying degrees, not extreme. Flecking, when flecking first, they tried to ban flecking. What's flecked? 2 over the eye, 1 in the middle, black across there. What's flecking? There's judges, it was a nightmare. Some people would kick a bird out because it had a bit over the eye. Others would accept it quite heavy. So the BS went, we won't disqualify them, penalise them. The most sensible decision they ever made. Under some judges, they'll tolerate it and it'll go reasonably far. But if it's got these 3 major faults, they won't win the top awards. Other judges won't have it at any cost. But we've got a situation where these, and I use the word alleged long flights, where birds have got slightly longer feathers or tail. Some judges accept them, some judges won't. It's making a mockery. And if I was an exhibitor that had a bird that was disqualified one week and best in show the other, I'd be writing to the BS, saying, hey, you guys have got to get your act together. Get the judges, what's going on? Now, I say it how it is, and that's just what I believe, because it's splitting the hobby. People are falling out. There's a different type of bird. If you don't like it, penalise it, that's fine. But let's not have any of this calling them long flights when they're not, because it's an education thing, and we need to sort of, or the Budgie Society, I think, needs to get a grip of that and say, look, we need to make sure, because people are falling out over it, and it's ridiculous, it's ridiculous. So this hopefully will try and clarify some of it. What about that? How many aviaries do you see that in? If the RSPCA walked into my bird room and saw that and that, which one do you think I'd be in trouble for? It wouldn't be that. Why is that acceptable? And I say acceptable is, you mention that to some people and they go like that. Oh my God, I'm not having that. Look in the flight, they're running about. And they'll open them and clean it and they put it in a breeding cage. Some breeders this year will have birds in a breeding cage like that. That is just as hereditary, if not more than that. I'm sick of that, which is why I try to move away from it. But because of our obsession with feather, the birds that carry that are normally the great big face birds. You might only have a couple in your shed. How are you going to get rid of them? So people use them. The rocky road to ruin, that is, using birds with that. And I'm hoping that the strength and length of tail on these type of birds might counteract that. Les Martin's grey-green was seen as the futuristic bird, the modern bird. Look at it. The head touched the top and you know where the tail went. Nowadays, they'd be kicking it out and saying it's a long flight. That bird filled the cage. It was seen as the futuristic bird. The exact same cage in the 50s. Look at that. Top winner in the 50s, the tail virtually just went across to the perch. We're using the same cage. Not a problem, because what the BS did, they brought the perch to the front. Great move. Because of that back line, when we used to try and train the birds, if you remember, they'd come to the front of the cage and they'd put one bar on the reach over and put it on the, and you get your foot off and you chase it back. What it was really saying is, I can't stand up back here because of the slope of the cage. So they brought it to the front. Master stroke. The bird can come to the front, loads of cage left, it can go up. Well, here's a news flash. It also goes down. So, as we've allowed them to come to the front of the cage to get a bigger bird, do they really think we're going to have a bird that's going to go up, but the tail, for whatever magical reason, won't go down and touch the seed? Of course it will. We're breeding longer birds. So we really have to move away from this looking in a cage and seeing a tail, touching it and saying it's a long tail, because it's ridiculous. We could, if you like, they brought in the birds of colour, fine, it'll never replace the exhibition bird, and if it brings more in, that's fine. I don't know anything in life that goes backwards. And if the bird's going to go forwards, we have a responsibility. And the responsibility is, it doesn't happen by accident. We develop the bird. So we have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to think of the bird's health as well as everything else. If we're going to get a bigger bird, fine. But let's keep size, shape, balance and deportment. Don't panic about the cage. But let's move away from this looking in the floor and saying it's a long tail. 1925, the show cage was standardised. 90 years ago. And the birds are still in the same cage. Well, you know, Eric Peake once commented on these birds with flights and tails, and he said it'd be like putting a glider's wings on a jumbo jet if you try and get the wings to conform on a bigger bird to the size that you want them to be. If the bird's going to develop, it's going to develop all round, which includes wings and tail. You do get ugly birds that are unbalanced, and I would penalise them. In fact, I wouldn't show them. But let's get it right. You know, let's not just call them all long flights when they're not necessarily. That bird's flights, clearly long and crossing. Now look at the length of that bird's tail. What size should it be? In comparison to the bird, the visual tail from either where the tail meets the body, which is supposed to be two in the same thing, but it isn't in this bird, the visible tail should be a third or a little more than a third of the bird. That's 50% of the bird. Well, when the directive says extreme length of tail, well, there you go, meet the bird it's on about. That's the bird. Anybody seen them in a show yet? I haven't. That bird's tail would be well on the floor and almost curling up the floor, up the wall. But we don't see them. So we default to the other birds that are a little bit longer. That bird's flights, there's the body feather. They go past the body feather. Because when you read the description in the BS, it'll explain to you that the flights have got to go, where the body feather meets the tail, it's called the cushion, where the body feather meets the tail, not the cushion up behind the wings, because no birds do that, not even the English ones. You look at your birds, and where the body feather meets the tail, that's where the flights end up. That's where they go. That one goes past. There's the body feather, and they go past. So that bird would fit the description of kicking it out because it was a long flight. But we don't see them. We don't see them. Look at that bird. That's made worse because it's sat like that. Okay? But even though it's sitting like that, look at that. If that bird sat at the right angle, there's loads of tail on the floor. And if you actually looked at the balance, I bet it'd be too long. Nice bird. I'd understand them being disqualified. We don't see them either. And I've already mentioned about the flecking. But that bottom bit, which if the directive is read and interpreted, then it's easy. I've heard this about, well, you can tell by the neck. Really? What page is that in the directive? It's not in there. Well, you can tell by the eye. Really? Well, what page is that in? That isn't in there either. What they mean is you can see it's a different bird, and I can see it's a different bird because I can tell by the eye and the neck. Well, that's fine. But as a judge, you're employed to judge to the BS directive. Don't veer off the BS directive. I've laminated the page, and I always get it out and put it on the side if anybody's got any doubt. And when you start going around and showing other judges, it's peer pressure. You know the guy thinks it's one before he brings it you. And 2 or 3 of you then say, yes, it is. That bird goes to another show. 2 or 3 say, no, it isn't. Disqualified, best in show. Ridiculous. We shouldn't be in that situation where we've got that, but it's happening. It's happening. What about that bird? Now, if that had seed in the cage, that tail would be buried into the seed, wouldn't it?
But it's not more than 33% of the bird, is it?
Look at the tail there.
Yeah.
That's not more than a third.
No.
Somebody would look in the cage and say, that's a long flight. So let's chop off some of the tail. Looks stupid. Absolutely. And that's the key word, proportion. Size, shape, balance and deportment. Not does its tail touch the floor. So it's easy. I mean, that bird, it's a long bird. That tail should follow the line of the flight, really, which is obviously making it. But I've used it as an example because somebody would look at that, and if there was seed in there and that tail disappeared in the seed, it wouldn't be a second thought. It'd be kicked out for being a long tail. But the directive doesn't say it is either. So it shouldn't be. So what's the future? For me, I want the hobby to be a hobby. You know, one thing you notice when you judge around the world is it seems to me that they really enjoy it. Most countries enjoy it. And yes, you have to have rules, but let's chill out a little bit and enjoy it as a hobby. Education. And this is really, I guess, a point for the BS. We need to make sure that if you have a rule, any rule that says you disqualify, it needs to be fact. Not an opinion, it needs to be fact. If you can't produce the fact, then take the rule away and penalise, like they did with flecking. Penalise. Big ugly birds would never win. But there's going to be nobody's egg on the face by one day doing something and not winning the next. So what's the future? Well, for me, I've nailed my colours to the mast now. I like the blend of the different feather. For me, it's not just for beauty and to look at the bird, it's health. I've seen what the small frame bird does when we pile feather on it, and I don't like it. As a judge, you'll judge a bird, looks super, you'll give it the CC, you'll put your hand in the cage to take it out to take the ring number, and you've got a handful of feathers. That cannot be healthy for the bird to have a small frame, but for us to continually keep putting more feather on the same frame. I wanted more frame, which is why I started using the European bird. There's like holding a house brick in your hand. They're a different bird altogether. On their own, they're no good because we're in England. We're not over, we've developed the style of bird. We've got our own standard, but I think they've a role to play. I want to try and do something about the health side of it. I don't want cysts on my birds if I can help it. The tail bit is something that's an inherent thing. you'll throw the baby out with the bathwater if you get rid of all the tailless birds, but still be ruthless with it. Flecking, you don't need to riddle your stud with flecking thinking you're going to put big spot on. Because I think you've seen with some of the examples I've shown you today, the smaller spotted bird is on a narrow feather. The bigger spotted bird is on a wider feather. It's fact, it's there, you can see it. Nothing to do with flecking. So, this bird brings short, broad feather, bigger frame, and in some cases, a longer tail and flight. That's what you're going to get if you use that bird. This bird, long, narrow feather, but due to the smaller frame, I believe, that's why they don't keep the flights, we get the feather cysts, because the body can't sustain the amount of feather that we seem to be obsessed with putting on the birds. So if we're going to keep going down the feather road, fine, let's have a bigger bird, please, because it'll take the feather a lot better. So what's the future? Well, you know, you breed your birds how you want. Don't you let anybody, me or anybody, tell you how to breed them. You breed them how you want to breed them. So I can only say what the future is for me and the type of bird that I want to breed. And for me, that's the future. Thank you.